In this session, we're going to finish reading chapter 1. We're going to find out what happened to that little girl in the red dress. Besmore and Rolf and I drove that afternoon to Idaho Springs to visit Mrs. Marshall, and we stayed overnight. I hadn't returned home for more than 10 minutes when the lady caretaker from the cabins next door came shuffling through the dust in her felt slippers. Irma had just dropped by to check that all was okay with us. I put on the coffee pot, wondering why all of a sudden so many visitors. And in the morning, too. Irma, though, often came over to sit near the window in the warm east sun, bouncing Rolf on her knee while keeping an eye open for any customers coming into the store. "Ain't it a terrible thing, that kidnapping?" the woman from the cabin camp exclaimed. "What kidnapping?" I asked. "Well, just 2 days ago," she went on. "Those gals who rented one of my cabins took off, and it's believed they took that poor woman's child with them." "What?" I shouted. "Do you mean when they put her in that car they were kidnapping her? I thought they were probably just going on a picnic." "You mean you saw them take her away and you saw the car?" asked Irma. "The sheriff's been asking if anyone saw anything. We've got to let him know, Edna." "Would one of you call him?" I asked. "I don't even know who the sheriff is." I felt sad and frightened and wondered where the poor little girl was now. It was supper time when the sheriff knocked. With him was a tall man I'd not seen around Dillon. "Mrs. Dercum," the sheriff said, "this here's Mr. Grant, the district attorney from Leadville, and we understand you saw the kidnapping." "And just why didn't you report it?" Mr. Grant asked in a very quiet voice, a voice that sounded almost threatening. "For one thing, Mr. Grant, I didn't realize it was a kidnapping. Also, the little girl had been hanging around and following those women for about a month. I thought they were just humoring her, dressing her up in their clothes and letting her come along on a picnic. It was in the morning before lunch and in broad daylight, too," I exclaimed. "Well," said the sheriff, "you'll be glad to know that the gals have been caught in Utah, and the child has been returned to her mother. They're in jail in Leadville. Got no women's jail in this county." But Mr. Grant broke in. "We'll be needing you for a witness. Seems as if they were with a white slave ring," he continued. "Seems funny to me that you waited so long telling anyone what you saw. And by the way, where's your husband? Are you sure now that you didn't know these gals before you came here?" I was speechless. But not my mom. She'd been listening and sitting quietly at the far end of the living room. But at the last question, she stood up, straight and erect, all 4 feet 10 inches of her, and glared at the men. You'll get out of here," she started in her strong Norwegian accent. They looked astounded, but the sheriff grinned, got up, and walked out, leaving the flustered district attorney to follow. But I was worried. I thought, what if it is a gang? That was an Illinois license plate, and those women were from California. I've read about silencing witnesses. My mother just must have noted my worry, because she said, "I must tell you what my Finnish grandmother once told me. I've never forgot it. She said, 'The witless one lies awake all night and worries, and in the morning his woe is just as it was.'" So I went to bed and slept soundly. In the morning, the sheriff knocked at my door. "You'll be glad to know, Mrs. Dercum, that those 2 gals confessed, so you won't be needed as a witness. And I apologize to both of you for worrying you." I laughed with relief and told them I guess my mom took care of the worrying part, so it wasn't all that bad. Early mornings in Dillon, it was often 15 to 30 degrees with frost on the roofs. The air practically crackled, it was so crisp and clear. The sky was an unbelievable deep blue. With a slight breeze, the laundry would dry in minutes. Max wrote to me that he might go to the West Coast and work in logging there, which has A1 priority for the nation's war needs. Much timber is needed for docks, shipbuilding, and piling. Of course, that is, unless I'm drafted, he said. In August, I wrote to Max, I've been trying to buy a 375-acre ranch, which almost adjoins ours. It's at the foot of Loveland Pass and is called the Fry Ranch. Mr. Fry, who lives in Golden, wants $5,000 for it. His sister said they'd take $4,500. Remember that your grandmother said she'd loan us that amount? You think we should accept her offer? With the war on, I don't know when we'll be and I don't know where we'll be and how long the war will last. We might not get back here for 10 years or more. I sometimes despair we'll never get back. I've learned to love it so much, the valley, the mountain, and the people. When large produce and other trucks came through town, they had to make a sharp right angle turn at the Dillon Inn. One early morning in September, I was lying in bed, half awake, when I heard the sound of a big truck heading toward town from the south. I could tell by its approach that it was coming much too fast to make the turn at the inn. Jumping out of bed, I ran to the front window just as it roared past. The driver threw on the brakes, but it didn't do much good as it skidded sideways and turned over at the junction, just missing the Conoco's gas station and Eric Erickson's log house. The truck was loaded with peaches. As the trailer part of the truck slowly tipped sideways, the peaches poured out. I grabbed my bathrobe, slippers, and a wash tub and tore out the door. From the doors up and down Main Street and the side streets came women who flew along with colorful or drab bathrobes pulled over their shoulders, all carrying wash tubs and converging on the hapless truck. In no time at all, the peaches disappeared, and so did all the women. The truck driver was okay, but his screaming at all of us women was to no avail. August went by, September came. Every day I was expecting word from Max about our plans for the coming winter. With great delight, one chilly morning in September, I saw Max alight from a Forest Service pickup as it pulled up in front of my boardwalk. He wasn't even in the door before he started telling me, too much snow on Mount Evans, so I've been moved down to Squaw Mountain, about 15 miles north. It's only 12,000 feet high. Since the forestry student who was been manning the lookout there had to return to college, I've been asked to be the lookout until the snows definitely drive us down. Us? You mean we can live there too? I was beside myself with joy. It works out beautifully here in Dillon, Max continued, because the forest ranger and his wife want Besmore to look after their two children at the ranger's house. Shorty, the ranger's wife, had been offered a part-time job. She's a nurse, you know. Besmore was pleased about the prospect because she really enjoyed the Jouch family. Piling what we thought we would need into the car after arranging to store our furniture in Dillon, off we went.